Hello and welcome to the Mobile Accessible Games interview series. I'm your host, Aaron Spelker. Mobile Accessible Games is a group that is dedicated about all things about mobile accessible gaming, and through our interview series, we interview game developers, accessibility influencers, and accessibility advocates about the state of accessible gaming. And this week we have a game developer who created a game called Sound Matching. His name is Jurriaan Pruijs, and he is here to talk to us about his game. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I always like to start the interview series just giving you an opportunity to, just give you a short bio about yourself so the community members can know who you are, and then we can go into talking about your game called Sound Matching.
Cool. Well, I'm Jurriaan Pruijs. I'm from the Netherlands. I am, in my professional life, I'm a software developer. I started coding as a kid and never stopped loving it. I'm normally I work for banks and financial institutions, and I really like my job, but I also like to do a kind of a side job. So sometimes I build small games or some other small things, also to keep my to keep up to date with all the technology that's out there.
Right.
That's about it, I think.
Now, your game Sound Matching, let's just talk about that. Why don't you tell people, in a few sentences what that game's about?
Well, sound matching is really a memory game. Well, in a memory game, you have in the physical version, you have a set of cards, and all cards are duplicate. And you need to find the one that are matching. And I try to make a sound version of that one, where you don't need to find equal images, but need to find equal or otherwise matching sounds. So you can play it without seeing the cards.
Now, is Sound Matching the first game that you've put out there for public consumption, for purchase, or have you created any other games before this?
I did a bit of sometimes did some with a code jam. That you have a weekend where you get an assignment and you build a game. I once did it with one of my kids, just to do a bit of game development, but never for serious consumption, just for the fun of making games.
What was for when you're putting that out on an app store and doing all that? Were there unique challenges in doing that you never really thought about? Like, sometimes you create a game, but the harder part is marketing and publishing and stuff like that. Did you run into any challenges, or does Apple make it pretty easy to put your game up once you've created it?
Well, I have been building some smaller apps in the past. I think 5 or 10 years ago. I learned doing app development a couple of times, and then I forgot, and then I learned again. One of the most stressful parts in this whole thing is waiting for Apple to respond on your review, because you put a lot of time on coding and perfecting your app, and then Apple says, this regulation is not you're not conforming to this regulation or not to that regulation. But it's more the stress, but it's not really hard. I think the Apple toolset is pretty good. So that works. One issue I had with my sound matching app, that I was really frustrated by it. The original name was Sound Memory, but then Apple said, in Germany there's a company that has a trademark on the word memory. I thought, how on earth is this possible? Somebody can claim the name memory, right? It's just a word. You can also claim tree or a car or whatever. Right. But that was really frustrating.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So what of all the games that you could create, why sound matching? What inspired you to create a sound-based game?
Well, it all started with my son, who got visually impaired about a little bit more than a year ago. And then here in the Netherlands, you have organizations that help you adapt to the new situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I came in contact with a mobile accessibility expert who said, what we really need here in the Netherlands is accessible games for children, because children don't speak English. They've maybe never and the stuff that's out there is mostly English based, but really simple Dutch games, they don't exist. And then I thought, well, I know how to build apps, so let's build something useful for now. So I thought, okay, let's start with a small thing. Let's build a memory app. So that's how it all got started.
So that was they said let's find some good children games. They didn't dictate to you, why don't you come up with a memory game. That was kind of your answer to their question of let's create some sort of game for children. That doesn't require language per se, but still creates a game. Sounds are fairly universal. So that was kind of your answer to that question, right?
Yeah, well, once that, it's really the whole concept is, of course, not really language related. On the other hand, all the sounds already also have names, so you need to give a translation in the correct language. But for me, also the game was really as an exercise on how does this accessibility part of building apps, how does it work? So I thought the concept is really simple. So I can really train myself in, okay, what does it take to create an accessible app, and what's important? And I went a bit on the edge on, okay, how much features and settings could I add to make it as accessible as possible? So for me, it was more like a playing ground, which also in practice it turns out to be fun for blind children. So that's cool.
What was the most difficult thing about getting it to be accessible? Was there certain components that you found challenging to get it to work, or did it go pretty smoothly for you?
Well, I think all the tools API provides, or Apple provides are pretty good. The hardest part is thinking of a visual impaired person. So as a developer, not being visually impaired, do the right things, make good decisions. And that's really hard. One thing I learned is that there are so many variants of being visually impaired. Being a bit visual impaired, only seeing, having trouble with movement, having trouble with particular colors. There's so many aspects. So it's, as a non-professional, not knowing much about the issues, it's just a gamble. You just put out something and see what happens.
So all those things that you just mentioned that you kind of became informed about, where did you get that education? Did you, is that kind of through the services for your son, or was that, did you reach out and try to find people with different vision impairments to kind of understand what their experience is like? How did you gain that knowledge?
Yeah, well, my first test candidate, of course, is my son. But also I'm still in contact with the visual accessibility expert, who I'll just give the app, and she gives a lot of feedback, especially on the accessibility part. For example, I just launched a dice app. She said, well, I could use a color scheme that has a little bit more contrast. Well, for me, it's 1 minute of work of adding another color scheme, but without getting that feedback, it will never happen.
Right. Absolutely. Now, it sounds like you used the Apple coding tools to create the game.
Yeah. I stick with Apple. I think for most of the reason I'm doing this alone in my spare time. And at least here in the Netherlands, the iPhone is used mostly with visually impaired people. So, and my goal is really to reach as much as people I can in my own. So that's why I chose this platform.
So it sounds like, from the development standpoint, that it's just you basically as the one who's doing all the coding, and creating the game. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And then, like with all the sounds that are in games, so for a person who plays sound matching, as you said, it's a pairs memory game, and then you have kind of different categories. It's here's household sounds, or vehicle sounds, or animal sounds. So you have all these different sounds. I imagine that you bought sound packs to do that. You didn't record those sounds yourself, right?
Yeah, right. The most of the sound origin is Logic Pro, which I happen to have a license for, and that comes with a gazillion sounds. So I just went through the whole library and found I just searched for sounds that were I thought, yeah, that were nice for kids to learn to recognize. Some I recorded myself, the sounds around the house.
Oh, nice. Which ones did you record
The,
yourself?
those I recorded for myself. So if you hear a doorbell ringing,
Okay.
a lot of times when I was testing the app, people thought, "Hey, the doorbell's ringing." I went to the door, and yeah, nobody was there because I was just testing the app.
So that is your doorbell in the game.
Exactly, that's my doorbell, and also the human category. So the humming, singing, burping, snoring,
Okay.
all is all homemade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's
That,
it's
now,
yeah,
is
it's
that
fun.
easy enough? Is that easy enough to just, record it using your iPhone, or did you have to do some sort of special to get the right type of sound quality? Did you have to do anything special for that recording?
It was surprisingly easy. I think the mics on the iPhone are just well, amazing. I was a bit worried about it, but I think yeah, it was a first take, recorded with the dictaphone app and put it in Logic. Maybe some volume balancing a bit in Logic, so that
Mhm.
the volume is about the same. But
Right.
yeah, it was pretty easy.
Now, from the start of I have this idea for sound matching and or sound memory, and I want to create it to actually posting it out onto the App Store, ready for people to purchase. How long did that take you to develop the game?
I think 3 to 4 weeks, something like that.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
Uh, yeah. I'm pretty good at balancing work and private life. But once I have a focus on my private life, it's really hard to balance. So I put all my energy in it, and I forget everything around me. And so that's something I need to learn in the future to
Mhm.
better balance my private hobby, my hobby project. So that's
Now, since you kind of gear this specifically to help out people who are blind and memory game for young children who are blind, is there any visuals on the screen, or what is a person who's sighted who happens to like sound matching? What are they seeing on screen, if anything?
yeah. Well, one of my goals is that the apps I want to create is to connect non-visual impaired people with visually impaired.
Mhm.
One of the things I've heard when my son got this became visually impaired is it's very important for visually impaired people to stay connected with non-visually impaired persons.
Mhm.
So we don't create two groups in the society where we had the visually impaired with their apps and we had the non-visually impaired with their apps. So
Sure.
I try to make the sound matching also visually appealing for sighted brothers or sisters who can play along, so you can play together. And one of the tips I got is that, well, if you play with multiple persons, you can turn on the screen curtain, so you have a same level playing field.
Mhm.
So nobody sees everything. But also, if you play it in a normal way, you will see a grid of cards that will flip once you select it. And when it flips, the sound plays. And when you have an incorrect match, both selected cards will flip back. So also the sighted person can see, okay, this is wrong, or yeah, I have some visual, yeah, some feedback.
So what's the visual for like snoring? Is it just someone like lying in bed, or like how did you?
I see. Now, I did not add visuals for each individual sound. That would yeah that would cost too much time. I'm not a graphics person, and then you need to building an image set with the same style for all these different sounds. I think that was too challenging.
Okay.
So what you'll just see a card flipping with a different colored background, and that's about it. And because also one of the things a lot of people have low vision, so people with low vision, for example, on an iPad, yeah, can still see, okay, something's flipping, or this card is selected and this card is not selected. And so the main purpose was to have low vision persons the option to see what happens.
So, you have kind of a personal experience that led you to develop an accessible game. out of curiosity, before you had this personal experience, were you kind of really aware of accessibility and the need for accessibility? And was that something that you had any other experience or any other work that you had to do that involved accessibility?
Not much. I knew that the whole voiceover thing exists on iPhone, and also Apple promotes on, hey, this is really a thing. You should take care of it. But I think you only learn it if somebody this close with you, you see the impact on accessibility, and that it is that important.
So, we're obviously getting a lot more accessibility in games. There seems to be more attention to it, but obviously all the game developers in the world are not going to have a personal experience that really drives them and inspires them to do the accessibility. Just from your point of view, what do you think can be done to kind of get these developers to really think about it, really care about it, when they don't have a personal connection or a personal experience to accessibility issues?
I think that's a really tough question. I think the whole game industry is really is a tough business to be in general. I really don't know. It would be great if all the high quality games that are out there also have a deep thought of accessibility. But if I'm realistic, I think the money's on their mind. So that's and there's not just the market share, I think, is not big enough for them to pay that amount of attention to. So it's a really good accessible game.
My thought is, like, if we could universally get all computer programming, university programs to require a semester where you learn accessibility, and that's what one of the classes you need to graduate, that might start getting more people aware, of it. But we don't have that kind of universal attention to it down at that education level.
I think that's a good point. And well, one of the good things, one of my other kids is doing computer science, and it is actually a requirement. So he needs to build a project, and one of the requirements is it should be accessible, and they get a whole training and also examples on this is how it works, and this is why it's important. So in the education, at least here in the Netherlands, I see that there is attention to it.
Oh, that's great. Now you said you kind of got some direction of we need accessible games for children. How has sound matching penetrated, and has it been able to reach that group? Have you been able to see it in practice in schools for the blind or whatever the case may be that's in the Netherlands? Have you seen sound matching achieve its goal of reaching that group?
Well, the only contact I have with that group is the digital accessibility expert I'm in contact with, and I get positive feedback from her. But I'm really against tracking and all these kind of things in apps. So I really don't know. Sometimes I get the only feedback I get is from reviews, and sometimes an email.
Have you ever tried like marketing? Reach here in the United States, I assume the Netherlands is the same, but there's schools for the blind for children who are not in have a dedicated school to educate and teach them, to just reach out to them and just say here's sound matching, to a bunch of free versions so you can put it on your school computers for your kids or your school tablets, just to expand the reach and get the exposure. Like, have you done any of that kind of marketing for the game?
Well, there is one in the Netherlands. There are two organizations doing this, and the other organization we're not connected with asked me to write a small piece on the app to describe how it works, and now they can use it. So it is published, but as in marketing or I try to keep all my apps free. I just want to build it, and this is my let's say my contribution to this is my contribution, and so I'm not up for I'm not in it for the money.
Sure.
I just want to build apps that are useful, and hopefully people will like it. But so I'm not really. I'm also what I've learned. When you're a young developer, you always dream of I'm building this fantastic website or this fantastic app, and I don't have to work anymore. Well, in the years you learn, that's not how it works. So I came to the conclusion, well, I could best keep my hobby a hobby and do it for fun, and that focus on, okay, I just want to have fun and build the things I like. It's the state I'm now in, and I really like it.
So, I don't know if I really ever kind of really thought about this, but like a truly free game. So you're putting a game out that's free, no one-time purchases, no microtransactions. So that's really, money out of your pocket. I mean, you had to pay for sound images, you had to obviously spend your time, you have to put it up on the App Store, which has some fees to do that. Um, so this is really, really altruistic of you to just, spend your own money to put a game to make it available for people at really no monetary benefit to you. Maybe some personal satisfaction benefit, but no monetary benefit to you.
Yeah, true, but well, it doesn't cost that amount of money. What I really like about software development in general, the only thing you need is a laptop in most cases. Yeah, for Apple, you need to have a subscription to put things in the App Store, but that's not crazy expensive. So yeah, it's not. And as a software developer, I think you make good money. So I think these are for me. I think enough is enough. This is it's time to pay back. On the in my professional life, I use a lot of stuff that's also free, built by people who just like to build stuff for us to use. So this is kind of my payback of all the free stuff I use from other people to make money.
Now, when we were exchanging emails and right before we got on this call, you said that you have another game out as well, or about to come out. So why don't you just tell people kind of what's on the horizon there for things that you're putting out as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, it's not really a game. It's but it's to support a game. It is a kind of a dice app on your iPhone. One of the things I found out all the dice apps that are out there, of almost all the dice apps, are filled with ads, in-app purchases, and also, or they're not really accessible, not even in English. So I thought, okay, and there are also dice apps that are really complex. You have these really complex board games with a lot of good dice combinations, and I thought, okay, let's just build a simple dice app with normal dice for people to use. So what you can do is you can select 1 to 6 dice, and then there's a single button, and then when you push the button, the dice will roll. Or as an alternative, you can also shake your phone, and then that will also throw the dice. So I like the shaking. I like the shaking it best. It really gives you kind of a feeling of the excitement of rolling a dice
Sure.
in your hand.
Do you, besides a normal six-sided die, do you do, like I know some Dungeons and Dragons games or whatever, they have like 20-sided dice. Do you offer people to have different sided dices as well? So depending on whatever game, you can pick the dice that work for that particular game.
Yeah, currently there are. I did a little bit of research on dice. There's a lot to learn of it, but I added I think 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 20, something like that. 20-sided dice. And there's one also I learned there's one 10-sided dice. Sometimes start with a 0, from 0 to 9, and or from 1 to 10. So that's I included them both. But if anybody thinks I need another kind of dice, I'm happy to add it. It's that's the feedback I'm looking for.
Out of curiosity, so let's say I roll 2 die, and I roll them as 2 6-sided die, and when it lands and it settles on something, do I have to swipe to hear what it says, or does it just automatically announce you rolled a 2 and a 6?
Yeah, it will. If voiceover is on, it will announce each individual dice and also the total of in the settings. In the settings, you can disable showing the total. So because I can imagine for kids who learn to do math, it's good to have, okay, if you roll 2 dice, you don't want them to hear the total. Let them do the math. So you can turn it off.
Right. Is there any other games that you have on the horizon that you're working on now?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a game I used to play as a kid. I'm not sure if it's still a game, but it was also a suggestion by the contact I have. Is you have this game with a kind of with a round disc that you need to turn, and then one letter will show up. For example, a D, and you have a set of cards with categories. So category could be animal, and then so the category is animal, and then you flip this thing, and you get a D, and then you need to name an animal with a D as soon as possible, and then the first one who gets who has a correct name gets a point. So it's again a really a game you can play with your friends.
Yes.
I will not do any score counting or anything. It's really a supporting, let's say, a tool, just like the dice to play with others.
Now, how long do you think until that comes out?
Yeah, I've said to myself, because I'm really fine with how to balance. But okay, in January I'm done. I will only start in February. But I did already kind of worked on it. But I hope the end of February.
Yes. Excellent. Well, first off, again, I really appreciate you taking a personal experience and trying to do something that, was really helpful to, all the people who kind of experience, low vision or blindness. Games, I think, are so important to, providing a distraction, providing entertainment, providing fun, providing social connection. So these are all things that, the blind and visually impaired community can, really use having tools that help them engage in those, kind of benefits. So I really appreciate you, taking your own personal time to create a game that, meets a lot of those needs.
Cool.
Again, if you, when you have new games coming out, feel free to reach out to us. We at the community love to hear about new games, and I'd love to, again, maybe interview you again about the new game coming out, and just keep us informed of the great work that you're doing.
Yeah, I sure will. I listened to a couple of past episodes, and it also really inspired me to move on doing this.
Oh, great. Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody, check out Sound Matching if you're looking for a pairs memory game that, really doesn't focus as much on the images, but focuses on sounds instead. Kind of a unique experience, which I don't really see many paired games out there that really do that. So, check out Sound Matching. It's right up that kind of alley and focuses more on the sound of memory rather than the images of memory. So great game. I enjoyed playing it, and I will be having a review coming out soon for the group. That'll come out shortly after this interview. So everyone go download it and check it out.